Women in corporate, listen up. Performance reviews don't get you promoted, not in the way you think they do. In this video, you'll walk away knowing the 3 biggest mistakes holding you back in performance reviews. I'll share my 3 strategies on how to show your evolution, not just execution, leading up to the review and during it so that you can secure your promotion faster. And how to ask for clear, actionable feedback to close any outstanding gaps in your growth. And be sure to stay to the end because my last strategy is a total game changer. Most women walk into performance reviews hoping to be recognized, expecting their boss will just know everything that they've done, or thinking that their hard work will speak for itself. But that's not the case. And it risks you walking out feeling overlooked and passed over for promotions that you've rightfully earned. Let me ask you, have you ever found yourself in a performance review and, despite exceeding expectations, going above and beyond in your role, you still get a lower rating or are told there's still more you need to do before getting your promotion? I know how frustrating that is. I coach women from companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and P&G, and I want to help you nail your review to secure your promotion faster. Okay, so let's dive into it with the 3 biggest mistakes to avoid in your review. The first mistake is skipping self-evaluation before the review even happens. On the one hand, you might be expecting your work to speak for itself because of all the efforts that you put in this year. But on the other hand, you haven't tracked your wins consistently, leading you to forget ones that are absolutely key to your promotion case. And so the result of this is that you leave too much onus on your boss to actually lead the review, and you miss your mark on crucial lead-up conversations before the review even happens that impact the review itself. So moving forward, I want you to get comfortable keeping track of your wins consistently on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis. And pro tip, carve yourself 5-10 minutes every Friday so that before you go into the weekend, you can really easily recap all of the growth and impact you brought that previous week so that you can easily refer to it in the times that matter most. The second mistake is where you're learning new constructive feedback for the first time during your review. This should not be happening. Remember, performance reviews happen once, maybe twice in a given year. So there is far too much idle time between those moments to not take action. And so if you are not asking for feedback consistently, it can very well end up that you are in a review, a moment that defines your future and promotion path, and learn new things that you should have actioned sooner. The key, if this does happen, is that you don't want to get defensive. This is not about having friction or saying things like, why didn't you tell me that before? That's not fair. That won't get you anywhere. But it is about holding your ground on the things that you didn't get a fair chance to action first. You should never be learning a new piece of constructive feedback like that in your review. Your review should build on the feedback you've already had a chance to show your growth in. Because otherwise, you're going to find yourself constantly facing the moving of a goalpost when it comes to your promotion. I mean, if you've ever been in a review feeling like you did all the things only to hear, I still need to see this from you, or that's great, but I haven't seen this particular aspect yet, or you've had a negative recent experience and now suddenly that is taking up so much weight in your review and almost overshadowing everything that you've done prior. This is exactly the kind of thing you want to avoid. And if that does happen, I want to give you a quick script right now to help you make sure that you can overcome that with confidence. So let's say your boss is giving you a new piece of constructive feedback that you have heard for the first time. You're going to follow up with something like, "Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I do appreciate that feedback. At the same time, this is a feedback I would have really liked to know beforehand, especially given the example that you're sharing happened 2 months prior. Learning this feedback now is not giving me the chance to actually action it. And if I would have known that earlier, that would have given me a much better runway to actually focus on that area and not have it discussed for the first time in my performance review. With that in mind, I prefer that I'm able to take this back and show my growth in that area without it being officialized in my review. And I believe that would be a fair next step that we can both agree on. Can you support me on that?" Now, of course, you can make that script your own, but the key there is to make sure that you are not being held to something that you didn't have a chance to actually work on yourself first. And the third mistake that I see far too often when it comes to amazing and smart women in corporate is staying too tactical in the review itself. Too many women bank on effort, not leverage. And what I mean is that you're amazing at executing, you're driving results, but getting into the details is not going to be able to allow you to zoom out on the bigger picture. Your goal is to be perceived as ready for your next position, your next promotion, that next role, not just speak to the delivery in your current position. Not to mention, if your boss and senior leaders see you as invaluable in your team, someone that they just depend on so much or that they can't afford to lose, it will actually keep you in your role longer because it's viewed almost more of a hassle to move you than to just keep you where you are. But I'm going to be sharing a tip at the very end of this video that's going to help counter that so you do not fall into this trap. These three mistakes leave women stuck in the reliable but not promotable trap far too much, and it keeps you from getting the roles that you deserve. So remember, your performance review isn't about your past necessarily. Of course, that's a key part of it, but it's ultimately about your future and more of an alignment conversation of what needs to happen to get you there faster. So, with that out of the way, let's now dive into my 3-part framework and strategies to make sure that you nail your performance review with confidence. All right, let's start off with building a strong narrative. Now, what does this mean? There's a few key components of this, so I'm going to walk us through it one by one. Let's start off with business case storytelling, which is far superior to listing off tasks. If there's one thing I see happen too much, it's coming into performance reviews and even leading up in those conversations prior, focusing on what you did, listing out all of the execution-based aspects of your role, but we haven't crafted the story to support your promotion ask. Okay. And so when I talk about business case storytelling, this is not just about what you've done. It's very outcome driven. It's impact driven. You are proactively connecting the dots of the work that you've done and how that's actually driven your area of the business forward, how it's brought results that are meaningful to your leaders, to the company, and get you above and beyond just task execution. To help you with that as well, one aspect I love embedding is proof over promise. This is where you want to integrate accolades, emails, feedback you've gotten. And this is probably one of the easiest ways to advocate for yourself without it feeling awkward or cocky, right? I know for many women, it can sometimes feel uncomfortable saying, I achieved this, I led that, I directed this project, although we definitely want to get you there. But in the interim, being able to show a feedback that you've gotten from, let's say, a sister department that you work in, a client partner that you support, an external team that you've been driving forward, right? If you have proof to show that it says, hey, Michelle, thank you again so much for over delivering on this project. It helped us so much with the team, and I can't thank you enough, right? And being able to show a screen grab like that or show other people's words that are a testament to your work ethic is an amazing way of bolstering that business case storytelling, because you're showing your proof of example after example of how you've grown, but you're also echoing that with proof of other people who can attest to it. Now, this leads to the third piece, which is really critical: highlighting accomplishments, not job duties. This is probably one of the biggest gap areas I see for amazing women, right? We're focusing too much on the duty itself, what you're expected to do, as opposed to the actual accomplishment. What I mean in this distinction is the accomplishment shows very clearly not just the things you've done, but how you've done it and the result that it brought, right? You'll see that I highly recommend following my what, how, result structure, sharing what you did, how you did it, and the result that it brought. 3 really easy steps to ingrain in your mind of how to turn job duties into actual accomplishments, right? Don't just stop at the fact that, I submit 20 reports each month. Okay, great. That is a job duty. I would rather see I've led the submission of 20 detailed reports each month that have supported our team's decisions in amplifying our fundraising efforts to bringing in 200K incremental fundraising support month over month in the last 6 months. Something like that is a lot stronger, and it shows that this is a true accomplishment tied back to you. It's not something that is generic that can be misinterpreted as your direct involvement. Okay? A quick tip here, make sure that you are tying your wins back to the bigger company priorities. You likely know how you're being evaluated coming into your performance review. Those are typically the key performance indicators that measure your performance and success in your role. And if you don't know that, that is certainly something you're going to want to do earlier on prior to even getting into the review as you're talking with your boss. But let's assume that you know what those objectives are. Well, now the easy part is saying, hey, this is the work I've done. This is my what, how, result structures that I've laid out in the stories I want to share in my business case storytelling for my review. And the cherry on top is here's how those wins actually tie back to our bigger focus of customer retention, our bigger focus of decreasing cost, our bigger focus of driving efficiencies within my department. Right? And so when you can constantly reinforce that, it removes any doubt in the mind of your boss and senior leaders of how you've contributed to that. And guess what? It directly supports your promotion track because they don't just see you as someone who executes, they see you as a strategic ally who is impacting the things that matter most for the company. Do you see the difference? So just to illustrate this a little bit more, when we talk about what, how, result structures of your accomplishments and integrating that into your business case storytelling, saying things like, I've driven 3 of our biggest initiatives tied directly to OKRs by streamlining redundancies and integrating new automations. This has already saved 25% in operating cost in the last 6 months. You can just tell by saying things like that and structuring your accomplishments in this way how much more data-driven it is, how much more fact-based it is, and how much it's attributed to your distinct efforts. And pro tip, aim for at least one career conversation every quarter outside of your formal reviews so that you can actually work in 90-day sprints. You do not want to have these moments of lag and idle time of 6 months, 9 months, or sometimes even a year between one review and another. That is critical time that you can show how you're growing, your evolution, and already demonstrate how much you've done to move you faster towards your promotion goal. Okay, so let's move on to the second step in my 3-part framework to nail your performance review, which is to show your evolution, not just execution. So here's what we're going to run through. First off, promotions require growth evidence. They don't just fall from the ceiling or hoping that things will fall into place. That's just not how it works. Hope is not a strategy. Action and proof is. And so we want to be able to stack your evidence over and over again that show that you don't just execute with excellence, you deliver results. And so I want you to ask yourself questions like, where was I last year? What did I stretch? And how has my role expanded? This is a really good starting point to show that you are not the same person now as you were 6 months ago, 9 months ago, or even a year ago, right? And specifically in doing this, you want to highlight specific hero stories that actually illustrate how much you've evolved in a short amount of time. I often hear from amazing women that I coach, that I'm being told I need to stay in my role for 2 years or 18 months before I can get promoted. And I get that. Companies have standard timelines that they typically work through for average employees. But you're here watching this video because you are not average. We are positioning you as the exception to the rule. And so knowing that information is helpful, but my specialty is helping you fast track your path to promotion a lot sooner than that timeline. And a key way to do that is to show how much you've grown and evolved in less time than your peers. And so if you can highlight these hero stories, very similar to what we've just talked about in that business storytelling, right? That business case storytelling to show what you've done in just 3 months, in just 6 months, in 9 months, that's been meaningful for the business results, that's going to help bolster your case so much faster for your promotion and help your leaders realize, hey, if we actually move her into this next level role, and she's already demonstrated this in her previous position, that can actually be a lot more favorable for us than keeping her where she is. You also want to make sure you're focusing on outcomes over hours, okay? It's not just about how much time you're putting in. And I'm telling you, if you are doing really long, heavy, draining days, that is not the right strategy. You're likely caught up in busy work without focusing enough on outcome-driven work. Okay. And so as you're thinking about the outcomes that you are impacting in the company, maybe that is revenue driving, maybe that is cost reducing, maybe that is efficiency improvements, maybe that is team dynamics, morale, satisfaction, right? Maybe it's process enhancements that are driving better end results. Maybe you are in a function right now that doesn't have a direct numerical output of your work like sales or cost, but the work that you do directly impacts teams who do, right? And so one of the questions that is absolute gold in helping you really nail down that evolution piece is asking yourself, what wouldn't have happened if I wasn't there? This question is amazing because it helps you clearly distinguish between what you've done and what your team or extended team has done. And that's critical for performance reviews and conversations leading up to it, because you do not want there to be any confusion about the we or the team versus what you've specifically done. And so if you are able to show, hey, if it wasn't for my support on this project, if it wasn't for me leading that conversation, if it wasn't for me improving that process, our sales team wouldn't have been able to execute in the way that they did. We wouldn't have been able to impact 30% of the business from XYZ teams if I hadn't done this part initially. So it helps you to start thinking really creatively on how to position your stories and the evolution in your role a lot more clearly. And pro tip, before your review even happens, speak with people who are already at the level of your target promotion in your company. This is where you want to gather insights on the required competencies, skills, or even gap areas to help you make that same leap. And this can be done in like really informal settings like coffee chats or like one-on-one conversations. And it can run something like this. You always want to start, by the way, with something that drives flattery and makes the other person feel good, because when they feel good, they by default feel good about you since you've helped them feel that way and make them a lot more open to have the conversation. So this could sound something like, hey, Angela, thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with me today. I have to say, like, I really respect the work that you're doing at X role. And I'm actually looking to move into a very similar position myself. And I would love to know from you, when you were making that shift, what competencies did you find really helped you seal the deal? And what skills do you believe I should really emphasize in my upcoming review that show my readiness level for that next step? And perhaps as a last question, are there any gap areas that you feel are easy to fall into that I should address now to make that leap faster? Just guiding the conversation like that is going to show your confidence, your proactivity, and your intentionality to take matters into your own hands. So when it comes to your performance review and even conversations leading up to it, you can show your boss right then and there that you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, and you know what it actually takes to make that jump. And then tie those things back to your business case storytelling on how you're already integrating that to elevate your perceived readiness for promotion. And my third step within my framework to nail your performance reviews is be future forward. So let's dive into what that actually entails. First and foremost, you have to set measurable goals and align your vision with business needs. That's where it all starts. You don't want to have moving of goalpost where you go into a review thinking you have to do A, only to learn that you should have been doing B, C, and D this whole time. So obviously, this should be coming back into those quarterly conversations I've talked about prior that show a good movement on the right goals that actually measure your success. To help you with this as well, you want to ask specific A/B type questions for clarity on your next steps to avoid moving of the goalpost. Okay. So, for example, you don't want to just have something like, okay, this is what I need to do. Great. I'm going to go action that. I want you to walk out with crystal clear clarity of what you actually need to do and why it matters. So, let's say your boss has told you, okay, Michelle, great. I need you to be more strategic in your role. That can sound like actionable feedback, but it's actually not. Like, what does that even mean? Be more strategic. That can mean so many different things to different people. So, if I were you getting that kind of feedback, I would follow up with something like, thank you so much for sharing that feedback. I can definitely see how being more strategic will really seal my next step in terms of securing that promotion. I have a few ideas of what that might actually entail. Are you thinking that I should focus more on X when it comes to strategic elevation in my presentations and communication with our leadership team? Or are you thinking it's more Y as it relates to how I'm running my projects and sharing that with the broader team when it comes to our overall goals? Something like that is going to give your boss a grounding kind of starting step to say, yes, it's A or it's B. And like that, you have exact clarity to hold yourself accountable to and them accountable to, so that when you go action that, they can't then come back and say, oh no, I meant this, or no, I wanted you to actually do that. So that is an amazing way to close your path for promotion and set yourself up really well going into your performance review. And on top of it, you can absolutely lead the charge with what you want that to look like. For example, I want to lead our LATAM expansion, and let's build a 12-month KPI plan to do that, right? This could be an amazing step for you in leading up to your performance review in those earlier conversations. By the time you get into your performance review, you've already actioned it. You've already shown that alignment on that planning. Or if, let's say, you have a quarterly touch point or a mid-year review, this is where you are saying, okay, in the next 6 months, I'd like to support the product team more actively to support my next role, right? You are already taking an active stance here to get ahead of the curve, to show that you know what that path looks like and you are getting clear alignment by being future forward of what that actually takes. Okay. You do not want to be leaving any type of career path conversation and performance reviews, especially wondering what do you actually need to do. That is just going to delay your promotion, leave you moving the goalpost, and probably leading to a lot of frustration because you're doing amazing work without reaping the rewards of your labor. And last pro tip here, and probably one of my juiciest tips that works time and time again for our clients, is to plan your transition for your current role into your promotion ahead of time. Okay. This is going to make moving into that promotion a no-brainer, because if you are amazing at your work, which I'm sure you are, the problem is not that you can execute. They know you can execute. The problem is who's going to replace you if you move into your promotion. And so if you can already be proactive and show that you have mapped out a clear transition plan of who can take on the work as you transition? How can you redistribute some of that in a transition period as you move into your next promotion? What does that path look like that you can get buy-in on from your boss? Just by being proactive in that one thing, it is going to make it so much easier and a no-brainer decision to support your promotion track faster, rather than feeling like it has to be another 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, because you've already done that prep work and made it very easy for decision makers to say yes. Now, these 3 strategies work time and time again, but you have to implement them the way that I've shared today. For my client, Kate, this was exactly what we did together. When we first started, she had been in her previous role for over a year and a half, trying to move into her senior director promotion. And within just 8 weeks of working together in implementing this framework, she not only secured her senior director promotion in her review, but that came with an amazing 34% raise that was quite life-changing for her and her family. And what we realized very closely in working together was she was missing some of these key factors. For example, she was stuck a lot in the tactics and execution, doing more, thinking that that was going to drive her promotion faster. But she was missing the business case storytelling in how her work fed into the bigger goals of the company. So she was actually more in the talent and recruitment space of her company. And she didn't know how to actually quantify her work better and how it drove impact. And so together we mapped out her hero stories. We scripted out her what, how result structure accomplishments and how it impacted her sales team, her marketing team, her PR team, etc. And we also showed very clearly how without the things she put in place, what wouldn't have happened. And so suddenly her storytelling with her boss and her boss's boss and other senior leaders became so dialed in of how she was driving that impact that it shifted that perception of readiness level very quickly. And on top of that, we also really leaned in to one of my pro tips, which was speaking to others in her company already operating at the senior director level. And this gave Kate amazing intel of things she was already doing, things that she should be doing more of. And we did that about 2 weeks in starting our work together, so that by the time her review actually came around, she was more than ready to solidify her case for promotion and already tied those things back to her hero stories of how she was demonstrating that. And so I wanted to illustrate that because this doesn't have to be complicated, but by focusing on the right levers, it makes all the difference. And if this is resonating with you, I would actually love for us to have a call. I have an amazing free tool. It's my proprietary scorecard that will allow you to actually see right now what are your biggest growth gaps. I did that with Kate, and it became extremely clear where she was lacking and where we needed to course correct on quickly to secure her promotion faster. And it tied to a lot of the things that I just shared about her particular case study. And so what you can do, it's actually linked right in the description below. It is a free tool that you will be able to do on a free call with me and my team. On this call, we're going to be able to map out your specific gap areas, help you actually quantify what is lacking, what needs to shift, what is specifically keeping you stuck and holding you back. And on the call, we are going to map out the exact levers that you need to get you into that next role faster, that next promotion. Maybe it's an external role you're going after. Maybe you want to level up in your confidence and communication. Maybe you're dealing with a toxic boss and you're like, I need to know how to get out of this so that I can achieve the goal that I actually want for myself. Whatever it is, I highly encourage you to just schedule that free call. It's a one-on-one call. There, you're going to get sent my proprietary scorecard. It is a free tool that will quite literally change the trajectory of your career. And you don't have to go through that alone. We're going to map it out together on this free session, just like I did with Kate at the very beginning, to help her get so dialed in of what we had to fix and secure her senior director promotion in less than 8 weeks with a 34% raise. So just go ahead, click the link in the description right below. You're going to be able to schedule that in, and I can't wait for us to speak together and support you in this next level of growth. And on that note, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I would love to know what your biggest takeaways were, what you are excited to implement to nail your performance review with confidence. Just drop it in the comments. Let me know what stood out to you, what you are ready to action. Let me know what other questions you have as it relates to promotion and just performance reviews in general. Always happy to do some follow-up videos on that for you. And of course, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I post new videos here every week to help you level up faster as women in corporate. Together, we are a lot stronger. And thanks again so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.